As part of a large collaborative effort, the League of Women Voters of Massachusetts, League of Women Voters Plymouth Area and Hingham, along with the Massachusetts Women of Color Coalition, Women's Pipeline for Change, the Women of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, and Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, have put together information to inform and educate constituents about the upcoming Plymouth County District Attorney and Sheriff's race. Why are district attorneys and sheriff elections important? The Plymouth County District Attorney and the sheriff are accountable for the residents of Plymouth County. Their roles in the justice system give them far-reaching power. Plymouth County voters decide who should wield this power. The district attorney's term is 4 years and the sheriff's term is 6 years, but there are no term limits for either. In the November 2022 election, the incumbent sheriff is unopposed, but there is a race between two candidates for DA. So what does a sheriff do? The sheriff's primary job is to oversee the operation of the House of Correction, or better known as the county jail, where people convicted of misdemeanors can be held up to 2 years. Over 50% of state's incarcerated people are held in county jails. The sheriff is also responsible for maintaining safe and healthy living conditions, ensuring those in need of medical, mental health, and other needs receive these supports. The sheriff also provides educational and rehabilitative programming, along with supervision and training of staff. Overall, the sheriff's role includes the maintaining of a habitable living environment for those in custody. The Plymouth County Sheriff's budget for fiscal year 2021 to 2022 was $65 million. The sheriff has a very impactful role. The sheriff controls the maintenance of family and community ties through visitation, phone calls, and voting. The tactics someone in this role implements has the opportunity to create a successful reentry of those convicted. Next is the role of the district attorney. What does a district attorney do? The DA is responsible for seeking justice on behalf of the Commonwealth by overseeing the prosecution of all state criminal cases in the county. The DA decides whether to request bail or other pretrial restrictions. They also decide whether to prosecute when a criminal charge is issued by the district court, to divert the accused to a program or drug treatment, or to dismiss the case. In the Superior Court, they would also make a decision to seek indictment against and for what charges, or whether and how to negotiate a plea deal. Overall, the DA decides whether to focus more on rehabilitation or punishment. A DA can play a role in rectifying the racial disparities in the Massachusetts justice system. According to a study, in Massachusetts, Black people are 8 times more incarcerated than white people, and Latinx people are incarcerated at 4 times the rate of white people. After an accused person is released, the decisions that were made by the DA in the past can limit their ability to have access to education, secure employment, and find housing. In summary, through their decisions and their actions, both the DA and the sheriff have a lasting impact on many people's lives, for better or for worse. Both the DA and sheriff can play a role in eliminating the race disparities prevalent in our justice system.
Know your sheriff. The sheriff in Plymouth County is Joseph Daniel McDonald, Jr., Republican. He was the first elected in November 2004. The 2022 race is uncontested, and he will serve the office for another 6 years. His base salary is $151,000 a year. Priorities your sheriff was asked to respond to: immigration, opiate use treatment and mental health services, communication access, transparency, voting, conditions, administrative leadership. Some of the conditions around mental health services is access and resources, and ensuring that people that need treatment have access to it and have the capability to get it. Some of the other issues around voting are ensuring that of those who are incarcerated have the right to vote if they're in that situation where they're able to vote, that they're given the right to vote and they get the right information around re-entering society, and provided the resources and treated as citizens. And also the administrative aspect for the sheriff is important because there's a huge amount of funding that goes into ensuring that all of these things are important and that happen for the community, and that there's resources and there's policies built around these areas so that voting is a key right, that they're being transparent with the policy and the administrative administration, and that they're also sharing their budgets with the community, and the money is being aligned with community access. Also receiving fair practices to restore their voting rights, and conditions around language access, and ensuring that those who who speak other languages are receiving that information as well.
So my name is Ali, and I'm your average resident in the city of Brockton for over 20 years. I want to talk about the DA and the importance of putting in awareness and learning about the DA. So we're talking about priorities district attorney candidates were asked to respond to. Diversion, equal treatment, the criminal justice reform, this immigration is a huge matter. The DA is the overseer of how we're saying it's a far-reaching power. So of many systems where we can work together in smaller entities, but to establish a social justice program but have limitations to the people in the community of the greater need, I think it's more important to revamp those areas. So understanding the role of your DA, understanding the role of the Brockton District Courthouse, the Metro House, understanding the social justice in all these organizations, it would definitely be great, but many people don't have the time to go figure out that they exist. And I want to close out by saying that and I just want to encourage the voters to say that you have a right to understand your judicial system. You have a right to understand anything that pertains to a government that is for the people, because a lot more information should be disclosed, especially in the data, especially in the financial part.
Even though our coalition of organizations was not able to bring you a candidate forum for the Plymouth County District Attorney race, we did want you to be aware of the resources that are available so that you can find out where the candidates stand on the issues. The League of Women Voters of Massachusetts has an online voters guide called Vote 411, and you can find it by simply going to vote411.org. Both candidates for Plymouth County District Attorney did answer the League-generated questionnaire, in which we asked their opinions and their positions on the important issues that the District Attorney role is responsible for. So when you go there, you can find out what their responses were. I like to think of Vote 411 as your one-stop shop for everything that's going to be on your ballot. So when you go to the platform, you type in your home address and it will bring up your personalized ballot. So everything that's going to be on your ballot when you go to vote, you'll be able to see from your computer at home. Of course, you can also look at the candidates' websites to find out what they're saying about their positions on the issues. The incumbent candidate is the Republican Timothy Cruz, and you can find him at datimcruz.com, and that's Cruz with a Z. And the challenger is Democratic candidate Rasan Hall, and Rasan's website is hall4da.com, and that's the number 4, hall4da.com. So here in Massachusetts, back in June, we advocated for and passed the Votes Act. This new law ushers in sweeping reforms to our election laws, the likes of which we haven't seen in 10 years. And importantly, it increases access to the ballot box. The new law makes permanent the temporary reforms that were enacted in 2020 to deal with the fact that we were conducting an election in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. There are two main pieces of the law that I want to highlight today, which I think illustrate the increased access to the ballot box. The first is that all Massachusetts voters now have, as a permanent option, voting by mail. Before this, a Massachusetts voter needed to have one of 3 excuses in order to vote absentee. They were disabled and could not get to the polls on Election Day. They were out of town on Election Day, or for religious reasons, they could not get to the polls on Election Day. So historically, 5% of Massachusetts voters voted absentee. But as of 2020, 42% of voters voted by mail. The second point of the new law that I want to highlight is the early in-person voting option. This means that a voter can take advantage of evening hours and weekend hours to cast their ballot. For the election coming up on November 8th, there are actually 2 weekends in which voters can vote. So for someone who is working 2 jobs and cannot get to the polls on Election Day, this is an option for them. Or for anyone who can't take time off from work to get to the polls on Election Day, they can vote on the weekend or early in person in the evening. And now I just want to remind folks of the key dates and deadlines for the upcoming election in November. So starting this Saturday, October 22nd, and running through November 4th, that is the early in-person voting period. And I just want to flag the fact that the location and the hours for your in-person early voting depends on where you live. So please check with your local election official as to what the hours and locations are for your city or town. The second date to keep in mind is that October 29th is the last day to register to vote. So please check the status of your voter registration and make sure that everything is right, and encourage your friends and family to be sure that they're registered by October 29th. The other deadline is November 1st, which is the last day that you can submit your application for a mail-in ballot. If you know you want to vote by mail, please don't wait till November 1st to actually get your application in. With the U.S. mail system being relatively slow, we want to encourage anyone who knows they want to vote by mail to get their application for their ballot as soon as possible. And finally, November 8th, Tuesday, is Election Day, and statewide the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So for any of these dates or deadlines that I just mentioned, I just want to make sure people know that they can go to the Massachusetts Secretary of State's website, just Google Mass Secretary of State, and when you get to that landing page, you'll see a small red box in the upper left-hand corner that says Elections and Voting. If you click on that, that will give you all the information you need to make sure that you cast your ballot in a timely and proper way.
So we're here sharing all this information for you for 2 reasons. You and you, the voter, to inform you and to empower you. And I realize that some people haven't taken the extra step to go out and to register to vote. And you heard all the options and opportunities that you have to register to vote, when you can vote, voting early. There are a lot of people in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that have really worked hard to ensure every eligible voter has an opportunity to vote. In Plymouth County as a whole, 25% registered voters voted in the primaries, which is higher than the state's overall voter turnout at 22%, but some votes were still left on the table. Voter turnout in Brockton, the largest and most diverse city in Plymouth County, was one of the lowest voter turnout rates for Massachusetts in the primaries at only 15%. Young people 18 to 24 have the lowest voter turnout across the state since 2003. Now entering into the 2022 elections, our past history tells us that the average voter turnout in the 2020 elections, statewide general elections, was 76%. So there's a long way to go, and a lot more people need to vote. Every eligible voter has a say. Your vote is your voice, and your voice is your power. You must use that power. Don't let someone else speak for you because they used their vote and you did not. It's your right, but it's also a privilege and a responsibility if you want elected officials who are accountable to you as the voter. Don't give away your power by leaving it on the table. Embrace it and get out and vote.